guys, it is Tristan with Nerdut's Newsstand, and today I have Wes from Thinking Critical with me, and we are going to talk about John Kent, the Tyrant, that has been something I've been looking into, but relatively standing up for Tom Taylor for the most part, but I think that's over. And we need to talk about how this was predicted in Infinite Frontier Zero. And now we are seeing full-fledged Tyrant coming about. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, thanks for having me on. I love talking about Tom Taylor's interpretation of Superman and Nightwing.
Oh, yeah, totally. See, my biggest issue with this is I went through the editors yesterday just to see what the difference was. And I do think maybe that has something to do with it because Jamie S. Rich is the editor for the Superman titles, right? And he's gone. But he was also the one that let that terrible John Ridley story through. I'm hoping maybe whoever comes to replace them will help. But I don't know. I think Tom Taylor's star is too bright for him to actually get a whole lot of editorial oversight. What do you think?
I think you're right on the money. Tom Taylor had a super successful DC series. They got a sequel series that was also very successful. Had a couple of digital firsts that I think did pretty well as well. He also was in Justice. And it certainly appears that Tom Taylor has been earmarked as one of the top stars at DC Comics. We've had Jeff Johns. James Tynan's about to kind of move on. He's going to do a little bit of DC work. But we've had a lot of these big name DC writers kind of moving on, and Tom Taylor's certainly earmarked to take that spot. He's got a Batman special series going on right now with one of the Kuberts. He's writing Nightwing, which is certainly like the second best-selling Batman associated character. And now he's doing the introduction of the new Superman. So he's certainly a big fish in a small pond at DC Comics. So I doubt he's getting much editorial oversight. And we're starting to see a lot of the shades that we saw during his time at Marvel Comics, which made me so apprehensive to even read an issue of Deceased before I checked it out and I ended up liking it. But I guess this was all kind of predictable.
Oh, yeah. And I had never read those X-Men titles over at Marvel. I had simply went off of stuff like Injustice and his Deceased work. So I really was enjoying a lot of his stuff. But Superman, Son of Kal-El, #2 comes out. And my goodness. And you know what's funny to me? They did say, and they did this whole mouthpiece where in Infinite Frontier Zero, they did his little section of the story, and we had Spectre coming out to say, he's not going to be a tyrant. He's not going to be a tyrant. And then they lead us in the exact opposite way with this story.
I thought Spectre said he was going to be a tyrant, and then Wonder Woman said, no, he could be the greatest hero of all time. We have to let it play out. I thought Spectre was
maybe
predicting
you're right.
He would be a tyrant. I think so.
Maybe you're right. I'll have to look it up before I edit, but I can't remember if it originally started that Spectre said he was going to be a tyrant and then he changed his mind with the whole squid story or what happened. But in Superman, Son of Kal-El 2, we see kind of opening up with this whole truth podcast. And then I find it hilarious that they go to YouTubers or podcasters for the truth. But even so, they have him in his own little, I guess, incognito outfit. And the idea is good, but I think, again, he is always going to be known as the son of Superman, Superboy, whatever you want to say he is. We see him go to college. And what bothered me right away was the fact that with each and every single one of these bullets, we see this domestic terrorist kind of put within their I don't know what those magazine. They say thoughts and prayers. And
that can be taken thoughts and prayers on every bullet individually.
Yeah. That could be taken towards anti-Christians. It could be taken in a way of people, online going, oh, I sending thoughts and prayers. And that not being enough for Tom Taylor. Oh my God. But, and then even goes as far to say, when he shoots the gun, he says, "Shut up! It's too soon to politicize this." What?
Pretty heavy-handed stuff. Is definitely hitting you right over the head with the sledgehammer, which is, this is the worst that Tom Taylor has to offer when he's writing this. It's not social commentary. It's almost propaganda. Obviously, this is an anti-gun message, and I understand that there's a lot of debate on gun laws and whatnot, but it's so heavy-handed. It's absolutely insane, and I do take it as an anti-Christian message personally, but I also definitely think it's his, I don't know, his making a statement regarding thoughts and prayers not being enough in a time of tragedy.
And exactly, and with him saying that it's too soon to politicize this, everything whenever there's a tragedy, it's always initially gun control or protecting our guns. And I think with him saying that, he's saying it happens instantly, and that's very true. It does happen instantly, but when you add the two together, I think it makes the message way worse, because he is not American. He is not from. He doesn't live under our Constitution. I mean, and you actually don't either now. But right now, we have laws in place to prevent tyranny. We have laws in place to prevent stuff like guns being taken away. And having this put into a very North American market, I think, is a little, it's heavy-handed, to say the least.
And yeah, I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. But, DC Editorial, they're the ones that greenlit this, or the ones that let it get through. And I think this is, a harbinger of things to come in Superman, and really anything that Tom Taylor is going to be writing in DC Comics that's not within, like an Elseworld story. If it's not deceased, this is what he's going to be using these characters for. They're a mouthpiece for his, his political opinions. Hey, I can go to his Twitter feed and read all this stuff. Yeah. I don't actually want to have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the scary part about it, is where everything, it seems like it's going to be heading that way. So let's talk about the conversation, because he goes, we see John go to his dad, and they're sitting on the moon, and they're looking at the earth, and it's big, and it's deep, and it's meaningful, until it gets awkward, where we see John actually go through and say, you can see what I see, Dad. Oceans struggling to breathe, forests disappearing, ice melting, inaction due to selfishness and fear, division and tribalism, and stupid borders. God. It's so bad.
It is, yeah. It's it's the worst kind of Saturday afternoon special, right? Or after school special that you can get. You're like, this isn't something where it's you're putting it on the cheap so you can get a little message out. This is a guy that's supposed to be a top flight comic book writer, and he has no subtlety. There's no nuance. He has no ability to craft like real meaningful conversations between people where you can discuss these type of things. It's just hitting you over the head. And I love how it's no longer global warming. It's got to be climate change, because once you change the term, anything that happens with the climate, will essentially validate your criticism, right? You can't say global warming anymore. And then it's, we can't have borders. Every country that has that maintains their borders, that has sovereignty, you have to maintain your borders. If you don't, you won't be a country very long. You're going to get invaded. Your culture, other people's cultures are going to creep in, and then you'll just basically be wiped out. And it's it's easy coming from somebody in Australia, where you're bordering the entire ocean. It's not exactly like you can walk into Australia like you can in other places. But I don't understand the fascination with borders and people actually protecting their own sovereignty and ensuring that the people coming into their country want to be there, are there for the right reasons, and maybe aren't there to do some bad things to the citizens that the government themselves are supposed to be protecting. But there's a lot of heavy-handed stuff about borders. Obviously, John Kent decides to save a boat full of migrants that are struggling at sea and brings them into the U.S. And when they try to put him in through the process, he starts talking down to the authorities and everything, because this isn't Superman anymore. This is Tom Taylor if he had Superman's powers.
Yeah, and I will say for that part, it does at least just want the restraints removed, and that I can respect. But it's the fact that he's saying, like,
doesn't he also say, I'm going to be keeping an eye on you and making sure that these guys do it right? Because if they don't live up to Tom Taylor's ideas of what these migrants should be, what kind of treatment they should receive, Superman might come in and wipe them out or something.
Well, it also bugs me because it's like, I get that, Tom Taylor, his job makes it so he's probably inside a lot. I get that. But he goes on to say, it's pretty bleak. And he's like, am I wrong? Clark at that point should have said, yes, you are wrong. Have you ever traveled across the world? Have you ever went, and I know you've done a lot of traveling with the Army. Have you ever went from nation to nation? Have you ever looked at the forest and the oceans? And have you went across the world? I mean, obviously John Kent would have, but it's not John Kent we're talking about now. It's Tom Taylor. Look at the world outside of social media and outside of politics, and look at how beautiful and magnificent these things are. Look, watch the sunrise, watch the sun go down, watch the tides come in. Realize the beauty that is still here and not on Twitter.
Well, first of all, I was in the Air Force, but no
I'm
big
sorry.
deal.
I'm sorry.
No problem. But I have definitely traveled the world. You see all the great things that they're there to offer in Europe and Asia, and I've been to Central America and all that stuff. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. There's a lot of great things to enjoy, and there's wonderful cultures out there. And if there weren't borders, there wouldn't be these wonderful cultures. When you go to a Costa Rica and you meet the nicest people in the world, or you go to Amsterdam and you go to one of the craziest cities in the world, or you go to Seoul into their absolutely amazing electronics malls, and you see stuff that you won't see in America for another 5 years. You got to get out there and see these things. People are great. I love visiting cultures.
Oh,
you'd think John Kent would have a very well-established idea about these things, being who he is and who his father is. But like you said, this isn't John Kent that the story's about. It's about Tom Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. And he says it could be a place where every problem could be tackled if our world would unite. A place where no one is left behind. But what's more egregious to me is that he makes the mistake of saying Superman isn't from America. And that's
he says he's not from the world.
Well,
that's
the world, yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
weird.
A complete, so he didn't even know he was from Krypton until his teenage years. That's a complete mischaracterization, because it's not something I would think would come out of Clark's mouth. I think he would
plus the context of what he said, because John's essentially chastising him, saying, you could have done more. Why didn't you do more? And Clark or Superman, it's the most insane thing you ever say. He was like, well, I'm not really from around here. I didn't think it was my place to save people. It's like, you've been saving people your entire life. You've been, you fought to the death. You've saved entire planets. You're not from those planets either. That's not in Clark Kent Superman's vocabulary. That's not his mindset. But, who cares about the character at this point? Because this entire story and what we're learning here through these voices, is what Tom Taylor wants to project, rather than bending his story and his ideas to the characters that have 80 years of history. He's bending the character with 80 years of history to his story and his message. And that's why it all falls apart.
Yep. And that's why I don't think this is going to be one of those runs. I think they have a backup plan in case this doesn't work. And I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure they do same with Jason and Jackson Hyde. But I don't think this is going to even maybe be as popular as some of the other times mantles have been taken over, because right from the word go, we're learning more about Tom Taylor than we are about John Kent, the way he feels when he looks at the big blue world, the way he feels when he thinks about stupid borders. I can just picture Tom Taylor kicking a can when he says that. It's so dumb to have it put as and you can't open up this can of worms. You just can't in comics, because then it'll be like, well, Mr. Terrific could have created this while the Flash delivered food to everyone. This stuff has been done time and time again, whether it's Squadron Supreme or something, even that Tom Taylor wrote in, The Authority, or what is it? Superman versus the Elite. No, what it's called. What's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way? And then, Injustice. These things have been done, and it shows the problem with these issues. You can't curb hunger because the Flash could have delivered a meal already to everybody. You can't open up that can of worms because that's not how heroics in storytelling goes. At least not this kind of book. It can be done just separately.
Yeah, it doesn't work for the character. It doesn't really work for the DC universe. But that's the problem that we're getting with DC Comics, and they definitely do have that exit strategy. We know there's a crisis event coming in 2022. So if this doesn't work out, and my prediction is that it won't, the initial sales will be absolutely fantastic, and then you'll see it quickly tank as people realize this isn't the Superman. Not only is it not their Superman, it's not the Superman that they want to replace Clark Kent. So the character will be summarily rejected, and Tom Taylor will get a move on to ruin another character.
Yeah. And well, as he's already doing it to Nightwing, I'm curious to see. I stood up for that series, but now I'm a little worried as to how it is going to go. But
as soon as we got that second issue, and Nightwing, who's been fighting crime essentially his entire life, like pre-adult, in his adolescence, he's been fighting crime. Someone literally robs him. And once he finds out that they're homeless, like, well, crime's okay if you're homeless. And like, well, this isn't Nightwing. That's not what Dick Grayson would say about this. And plus the idea that anyone could pickpocket Dick Grayson's absolutely insane.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. And I get what he's going for. Like, poverty and stuff causes crime, and it's an endless cycle for the disenfranchised. I get that, but it doesn't work with the character that you're using as a mouthpiece. It just absolutely doesn't. And especially when you're talking about Bloodhaven. Like, Bloodhaven is not New York City. It's a terrible crime-ridden city with crazy people in it. Literally,
it's Chicago.
People. Yeah. That's good. But even so we're gonna see. He says, Superman says, "It's on you now, John. It's on you now. You're gonna save the world." And like you said, we see him now. He saves these people from Gamora, and we do see Henry Bendix, right?
From the Elite. From the Elite, right?
Yes. That's what I was gonna say. I'm assuming we are going to see more of those Wildstorm characters come in. We've already kind of been seeing them, but I think it was Weatherman, right? If I remember correctly, it's Weatherman. I need to really, really go back and reread. But I know the original rumor when it comes to all this controversy with John Kent being gay. I know the original rumor was that he was supposed to be with Jenny Sparks, which makes me think they might still be going that way if they're bringing in those characters, or it just might be, it was already part of the plan. They need to do it because we clearly see him kind of flirty with this Jay character when he's like, "It did absolutely nothing for you." Like, what?
They got like a little grin going back and forth. Yeah,
they got like that weird stare at each other, like, okay, I'm not reading into this one. I know it's there. Oh my! Well,
you also
goodness.
see the cover for, I think it's issue 5, and John's hurt. He's bleeding, and he's holding him in a very tender manner.
Well, I mean, if it was a friend and he had been killed, I could see the same thing. But obviously, we know John Kent's not going to die, and we don't have any confirmation. So I'm holding out. I don't want to say hope because I don't care either way, but I'm just kind of, before I put it on my channel and go, okay, this is confirmed. Kind of.
Oh yeah, you can't confirm it. Certainly not from this issue.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I think a lot of people were hoping for that.
You can infer it.
Oh yeah,
but you can't confirm it.
Oh yeah, that look is definitely a flirt look. So, how do you think this is going to go from here? What's your prediction for the last little bit here? Because I don't think this is going to get any better at this point. My optimism with Tom Taylor is gone.
No, yeah, it's going to get worse, and we'll see John Kent and Jay probably going to fix the world and solve all the problems. And it's not saving people. They're gonna fix the pay gap and all these silly things that you wouldn't want to see tackled within an action-based comic story. These things are certain things that are tackled more on the independents, but it's going to drive people away. This is going to get worse and worse, and it's clear that we're going to see Dick Grayson and John Kent come into contact with each other, likely affirm each other in their missions now that they've changed. he certainly hinted at that, using Superman essentially as a mouthpiece
Yep.
to go in there and confirm what Dick Grayson Nightwing is saying, goes in and confirms what John Kent as the new Superman is saying, you guys are absolutely correct. You're going to do it better than I ever could. And, you know, then they're going to bounce these things off of each other, and it's going to be, you know, unbearable.
Yeah,
it'll be
absolutely. I think it's funny they named the issue The Truth when we're really hearing Tom Taylor's truth. That's what it is. Yeah. And if anything I learned from reading that terrible Superman vs. Lobo is that apparently now truth is relative. So we'll have to wait and see. But thank you so much for coming on the channel. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time. It's great. Make sure you guys check out Wes's channel. It will be in the pinned comment and the description. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that we could have a little discussion. Enjoyed having you on the Comics Aficionados live stream, and hopefully we could do some more of these in the future. Really appreciate the support, and definitely come over, check out the channel. You might like it, and definitely expect more from Tristan and I in the future, doing more content together. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.